Hello and good evening. We are live and it's Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month, when it's block of the month in the Sew with Trisha, or probably in the Sew with Trisha group. So let's just have a look. Oh, we're here. Fabulous. So I can see there's quite a few of you coming along to join me tonight. What I would ask, if you could possibly comment and just say hello, you're here. Only that whenever I appear to be in a group, I don't see any comments. So I have got my trusty phone with me just so that I can see a few of the comments as they come through. So let's... That's better. Yes, you see, here we are. Hello, Maureen. Nothing on my screen here, but there is on my phone. So, hope you're well on this horrible, wet and windy night. It certainly is. It's really miserable and has been all day. Hello, Sue. Hello, Beverly. Hope you've had a great start to the week. Oh, plenty to do, Beverly, but so what's new? Hello, Pat. Lovely bag, Pat, that you've popped on the page. If you'd like to put it in the Sew Trisha Sews group, that would be fabulous as well, because there's more people in there and we want as many people to see what you've made as possible. But very well done to you. Hello, Vivian. Windy and wet with you. Hello, Glynis. Hello, Sandra. Hello, Linda. Hello, Carol. Hello, Vanessa. Hello, Sam, Maria, and Judith, and Anne. How's my dad today? Not too good. I should get an update. I didn't actually manage to go because the car was not working properly, so I had to turn back rather than get stranded 15 to 20 miles away from here. So I'm just waiting my brother to give me an update, but not improving as swiftly as we would like, but there we go. We shall see. Hello, Catherine. Hello, Karen. Hello, Lorraine. Hello, Christine. Hello, Tony. And Joanna and Anne and Kath and Janet and Jill and John. Hello, John and Jill and everybody else. Hello, Alison and Meg. Oh, lots of you tonight. That is lovely. Putting on a brave face. You know, I have to put stuff to the back of my mind when I'm here with you. Hello, Shirley. And hello, Diane, and hello, Christine. But I know you're all thinking, so thank you. Good evening, Janet. Right, so yes, today what have I been doing? What have I been doing? I've been preparing for Thursday evening when we have the open page. We're on the So Totally Trisha page, and we're doing a mug hug, so I've got that done. I finished off... oh gosh, it is again. Yep, I just forget about it, don't I? Sorry, I'll put my hand over it. Thank you for reminding me. Hello, Barbara. Thank you, Pat. Hello, Barbara. Hello, Leslie. Hello, Lisa Marie. Hello, Sheila. Oh, I missed that bit that came at the top there. Evening, Patricia. And hello, Elaine and Sheila. Wow, Yvonne. Thank you, Joanna. Yes, so I had to get all the rest of the samples off to Oundle this morning. Hello, Gita. Hello, Marion. And that takes a while. It really, really did. And you know I've got scrap bags on. Oh my goodness, why did I choose to do mini charm scrap bags, Sweet 16s scrap bags, jelly roll strips scrap bags, and Christmas scrap bags? I give myself so much work to do, but I hope it's good. Hello, Bev. I hope it's what you want, basically. So I'm actually looking forward to Monday. Well, no, I don't know. I'm looking forward to when orders are packed and I have a brief spell before March the 9th, which is the next show after this weekend's, and I can concentrate fully. Hello, Linda. Hello, Jean. Fully, which I love to do on the group, thinking of more designs, getting them, all the patterns written up and PDFs, etc. so that you can have my full commitment. I shall be dreaming scrap bags. I'll have a bad back as well, I know. But no, I keep changing my blade and it helps considerably. Hello, Dorothy. Yeah, they usually are, Lindsay, yes. Oh, that's good, Jeeta. Hello, Janet. Hello, Mira. Hello, Sue. Hello, Lynn. Yes, so post, I just don't know. I think there's another strike on Wednesday, isn't there? But the post has been very good in the past, and especially when it's going from here on the border of Northamptonshire to Scotland. It has been amazing. Although saying that, there's still one that's been lost in the post from the end of November, so that isn't good, but hey ho, that's, I have to accept it, I suppose. Hello, Anne. Hello, Pamela. Everybody saying evening to everyone. So yes, all of that's done, and I've been thinking about the I'm watching to see if comments come up on here, but they're not yet. So we have roughly an hour tonight, and I thought that would be enough time to get the block done. So I'll show you which block we are doing. It is this one here, and it is the Friendship Star. So I thought I might even pin it to the back here. If I put it round about here, what I've decided was that we will start off with a fairly straightforward block, so that, or get my phone again, so that it doesn't worry anybody who has not done any patchwork at all before. Oh, there's Bridget. Hola, mis amigos. Oh, I'll get a Spanish accent soon, Bridget. Hope you're having a lovely time. We'll miss you tomorrow. Hello, Leslie. Hello, Kirsten. Hello, Nikki. I do sell 45mm rotary blades, not on the website, but if you email me, I do have them, and I will tell you a price when you've emailed, because I can't think of it off the top of my head. Hello, Jane. Hello, Carolyn. And hello, Jane. Two Janes. Facebook tends to put the same names together. Yes, so I was thinking of a fairly straightforward one, which I know some of you may have done before, but we would go through the absolute basics as showing newcomers how we work with patchwork blocks, and those that have done patchwork before, just as perhaps a little refresher, hopefully give you a little tip or a hint of getting your perfect points, your correct seam allowance. And I'm actually going to cut the fabric tonight as well, because there's not that many squares that we need to make. So although we have got what we're working with is half square triangles as here and here and here and here, and what a half square triangle is a half of a square but a triangle. So half square triangle being two triangles exactly the same size, which make the square. And looking at that, what you would probably think straight away is, well, we need to cut two triangles and sew them together, which we can do, but because we are then sewing along what is called a bias edge, a stretchy edge along that diagonal, if you are a seasoned patchworker, you can work with, and it will be perfect. But as a newcomer to patchwork, there are easier ways, and especially when we work with squares, full pieces of fabric, and actually stitch across the diagonal line rather than cut it and then stitch it back together, so that we're stitching along a stretchy edge. So as you can see here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 half square triangles, and then we've got just a plain square block in the corners, so we've got 4 in one colour, and then we've got a centre one which is the same colour as part of our half square triangle. But it can look as if it is just one fabric making this shape, and then this is a background fabric, but it is actually a 9 patch, because it's made up of 3 squares across, 3 in the middle and 3 on the bottom, making it a 9 patch. Now the block of the month, every block is going to be a finished 9-inch square. So that means when it's all sewn together and you measure from one edge to the next, like across here, so on this red one, when you measure from, oh, that's sashing, from here to here, that will perhaps be 15 inches, that whole block. But before we stitched, no, that's a sashing. Before we stitched it together to the sashing and the outer edges, it would have been 15.5 inches, which takes into account the 1/4 inch in this seam and the 1/4 inch in that seam. So every block that you make will start off, once you finish the block, as 9.5 inches, and once you've stitched blocks together, it will end up as a 9-inch square. So we will be making 12 blocks over the next 12 months, and you will have the choice when it comes to putting it together. We can either do we'll say a quilt as you go, which means that each block we can put wadding behind it and a backing fabric and quilt. So just the size that it is here makes it very manageable, because you can move it under your foot very easily, rather than a whole quilt with one piece of wadding and one piece of backing fabric, and you want to quilt across all of the blocks. So when we come to talking about that, the choice will be yours. So we could put all of the blocks right next to each other. We could put all of the blocks with a sashing strip, just like this red in here. So these are our blocks here. This is just a sashing strip. So with our blocks, we could put a strip of probably the same colour as joining each of the blocks. We could do it like that. Or we could actually, we could put wadding to the back of each individual one and a piece of backing fabric at the back of each one, and we could actually just quilt them one at a time. And then there's a special technique of being able to join the blocks together that have already been quilted, quilting being the stitching of the 3 layers together. I know I hear or I read many a time, oh, I'm learning quilting. What they actually mean is patchwork, because we call it patchwork and quilting. Patchwork is the putting the pieces together. The quilting is when we stitch through all 3 layers of the patchwork topper, the wadding and the backing fabric, and that's what we call quilting. And that can be done by machine or by hand. Obviously, hand quilting takes a lot longer, but once you get the hang of it, after all, it is only straight stitching, it's running stitches, but as soon as you get the hang of it and get that evenness in your stitching, it is a lovely, lovely thing to do. Takes a lot longer than machine quilting, but in one way, hand quilting is easier to manipulate, you know, around curves or into points and out again, as opposed to on a machine where you may have to free motion quilt and it may not be as perfect as you'd like it to be, whereas your hand quilting can be absolutely perfect. So we will try a little bit of hand quilting as we go, because it would be nice to try all of these different techniques out just to see if you enjoy them. Because sometimes, say if we're going away or going on a long journey and you like to stitch, or you're in a mobile home or a caravan or a motorhome, you may like to take a little bit of sewing along with you, and a machine may not be the item that you can take along. So hand sewing is wonderful, and hand patchwork. So you could take your hexagons, your hexiform, you could take foundation paper piecing, which can be done by hand as well. So there's lots of, to have a variety of projects that you could do in different situations is always good. So what I've done, I have selected myself, I have selected 6 fat quarters. Well, they're not fat quarters, but I'm saying that we will need about 6 different fabrics. You could go with less. You could go with 4 fabrics if you'd like to, but you probably need a little bit more than a fat quarter of each fabric. If you've only got 4 fat quarter, only 4 colours, but just choose something, a range that goes together, or it would be quite appealing to do a totally scrappy quilt. So you could use different bits of fabric every time, and each block is not going to take pieces that are that big either. So tonight I'm going to use, as you can see, I've used these two different colourways in the songbook range, but I think I'm going to use two different ones today. So I am going to, just for a change, so I've actually used, I like to look at fabrics in a colour hue, or a tone rather. So I like them to be light, medium or dark. And I'm just looking to see which other one, oh, I might put it with that one. That'll be fine. So what I've got, not really lights, but comparatively they're light. I've got 3 sets of light and dark. So you can see there we have light and dark, light and dark, light and dark, and the two I'm going to use tonight are also light and dark. If I were to say take, not that I'd use this, but I've got a bit of fabric here, so if I were using those 3 fabrics, I would call the white light, the light green is medium, and the navy is dark. And it just gives more dimension to your blocks if you're using different hues. What you can also do, if you want to use exactly the same colour, if you wanted it all red, you could use different shades. So here we have the lightest being the white, then I go to a light here, and then a little bit darker, and then the darkest. So you've got your blending there. And if you remember the half-log cabin mini quilt, which I haven't got up here, but that went through from light to dark, and it just gives a bit of depth to your quilt. Don't necessarily have to think of colours, but just the depth of colours, so in light, medium and dark, and just making them flow through. So, as I said, I am going to be using, let's just pop those ones aside, I am going to use this one and this one. So I've got myself some bigger pieces of fabric. No, there's no comments whatsoever. Oh, let me just click that, chat. No, that's me chatting. No, nothing there at all. So we'll have a look here. Now let's have a look. So there's a few more comments which I haven't read. Yes, so some of you would like to try hand quilting. Oops, don't want to press that. Let's go, oh dear. See, it's good when it's so sensitive, isn't it? But let's go down here and get me back to what I want it to be. That's better. Okay, so Ellen loves hand quilting. Every quilt's, oh, that's fantastic. Yes, in the past, like a long time ago, 25 plus years ago, nearly everything I did was hand quilting. How I found the time, I don't know. But I imagine every evening I sat there just hand quilting. I remember the snuggliness of the quilt that I was doing. Because when it's a cold evening, it's nice to have something snuggled over you. And if you're hand quilting, the rest of the quilt can be all over your lap and legs and whatever. So, Juta's never tried it. Leslie asked, should we spray starch or best press before we start to cut, as we will be cutting on the bias? Leslie, we won't be cutting on the bias before we've stitched. So, as you know, I usually find an easier method of doing things. So, on this occasion, no, if you like to starch your fabrics, by all means do. It's not something that I particularly do, and many years ago I think I tried it. But if you use really good quality fabrics, and if you use cotton fabrics, usually there won't really be any need to spray starch it. It gives it a little bit more stability. So if you've got a fine fabric, or if your fabric is a little bit looser weave, probably starching is a good thing to do, because it will make it more stable when you're cutting. So not essential, but if you want to, and if it's something you do, by all means do. It's not wrong, but it's not, as I say, crucial that you spray starch. So the choice is yours. And Caroline says choosing the fabric always takes me the longest time. I suppose I tend to use a lot of fabrics from the same range, so they will work. And I think from the amount of fabric that you buy from me that are in sets, you'll find fabrics that work. But yes, it does take a long time. If you're just looking at a whole array of fabrics, yes, it can take a while. What I would say is, don't be too fussy about it being the exact colour match. It's very, very difficult sometimes to get the exact colour. You know, you might want a plain one that coordinates with a patterned one, but the hue is not quite right. You'd be surprised once it's together. Sometimes something a little bit different makes your work pop rather than it looking flat because it is all identical colours. So what I would say, do a lot of sewing, do a lot of practice bits, and sometimes the colours you put together, you'll be amazed. You'll think, I would never have put those colours together, but look how good it looks. All a case of experimenting. What size will the finished quilt be? You want to work. So there's going to be 12 blocks, Nikki. So you could have it 3 blocks by 4 down, which would make it 3 9s 27 by 4 9s are 36. So smallish. If you want bed size, you will probably want 4 sets of that. So it's going to be cot size, I would say, but you can always make it bigger by adding borders. And this is talking if you're sewing each block right next to each other. You can make it bigger by putting sashing strips, and the width of the sashing strips will make it bigger. So width-wise, if it will normally 3 blocks together being 27, if you added a 2-inch strip in between both of those, it would make it 31. And then at the outside as well, could make it 33, 35. So 2.5-inch strips to start with, so any jelly roll strips you might have. So that's coming up to nearly 3 foot or a yard wide. And the other thing you can do is put wide borders around the edge as well. So, you know, make as many as you like, but strictly speaking, if you just use the blocks and put them in a 3 by 4 formation, then it will come out 27 by 36. If you wanted, you could put 2 blocks together, or you could have 2 rows of 6, so a table runner effect or bed runner, and then it would be 6 9s are 54. It will be 54 inches long, which is coming up to 5 foot, and 18 inches wide. So the choice is yours there as well. And if you make one and then decide you want to make another, you can always do that at a later stage. And because you've done one, the second one will just come easily. So, oh, Jill, just in from work. And yes, it is very relaxing with your hand quilting. Jane's never tried hand quilting either. Hello, Heather, and hello, Marilyn. You'd like to use your love note, do I? I do have a little bit left. I have got a few bits on the show, but I have got plenty of some of them and not so much of the others. So if you wanted to email me with what you would like, I keep promising to put it in a Thrifty Thursday sale, don't I? And I will. You've got a blue layer cake and meters of white. What a good idea, Tony. What a good idea. So if you are going to use white in most of them, or just have a look from your layer cake, you know, you've got a 10-inch square there, and you've got lots of them you can use. I think that will look fantastic. Would it be a good size for a lap quilt? Yes, it would, but if you put in the sashing strips, which we'll talk about towards the end of the year, because it won't be put together until then, and also borders as well. So that would work well. But the size is a little bit debatable as to what you'd like to do. You know, some of you may like to just do the bare essentials. Others of you might like to go large. So, hello Mary, you're going to put a notice on your front door. It's Trisha time, as someone almost manages to call when you log in. That is terrible, Mary. Well, we haven't started stitching yet, so don't worry. We're about to do some cutting in a moment. Jolly good. And hello Mary, lovely to see you tonight. So if I miss any people now, I'm sorry, but I'm going to start doing a little bit of cutting. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to have the paler colour like here in the background. And if you look closely, those two colours are not really the same. Let's look at this one closer here. You know, I wouldn't put, this one to me is a more yellowy green and this one is a more bluey green. But they work within the range. And so this is how we'll show that sometimes the exact colour is not always essential for making a good block. So as I say, I'm going to use this light one as I've done here, and then I'm going to use the dark one as here. Probably the print is a little bit big, but it's going to work because there's lots of the navy background showing. So what I know that I need to have 4 squares here, and those squares are going to be, so let's just talk about, because this is a 9 patch block, and as in 3 squares across here, albeit this one is made up differently, what we have is each individual square or block is 3 inches finished, and that's what we work with, the finished size. So when you're designing and you're making a 9 patch block, you might want this one to be, what might you want to be? It might be quarter square triangles, or it might be a 4 patch block, so divided into 4 different squares. But that is going to be 3 inches, that half square triangle is 3, and that is 3, that is 3, those are, or that finish there is 3 inches square. But we need to start off with ½ an inch bigger to give allowances for quarter an inch on each side for our seams, because with patchwork we are the American way and the imperial way of ½ inch seam allowances. So one thing I will say, please make sure you are using patchwork rulers that are imperial and not metric. They are slightly different. When it comes to paper crafting, metric all the way makes it easier, but with patchwork we use ½ inch seam allowances. So this square here and this out of this corner and this are going to be, as they're 3 inches finished, we're going to cut them at 3.5 inches. So we're going to have 4 of that one, but we also need one of our contrast colour in a 3.5 inch square, because that is a 3.5 inch square, or that is a 3 inch plain square in the middle. So we're going to cut those first of all, and I'm going to cut one set at a time. I'll just show you what to look for when, let me just see if that, oh, that's not long enough. Oh, typical. Right, I'm going to use a combination of rulers here because I haven't got it long enough. Oh, it looks, I've got a red light on there. What have I got a red light? Oh, I don't know. Right, I'm going to dip you down so that you can see the fabric as I cut it. So we're going to turn off our light for the moment because it's better for you to see. Okay, so let us just take that down onto my cutting mat, and I've got my mat just here, and what I'm going to show you here is how, let's do this here. So I've got a longer than I need piece of fabric. So if you're right-handed, I'm going to flip that over so that I can see the self edge. And what we want to do, I know this is straight, but we're going to check that it's straight. So the self edge, so where this white comes to the green, we know that is straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my ruler just slightly over that white where it meets the green, and I'm just going to look to see that that is the same distance the whole way across there. And I'm using a rotary cutter, which, as you can see, the blade is covered whilst I'm not cutting. So I'm just going to place my fingers on the ruler back from the edge so that there's no cutting fingers, and just press down a little bit, and then I'm just checking that that's nice and straight there, and then release the blade and cut away from you. So a little bit of pressure, cover the blade and move that excess out of the way. So now that I have a perfectly straight cut edge, I need to cut, and I am cutting through, well, I'm going to cut through one layer here because I don't need too many. So we're going to cut one layer because we're going to need this fabric for something else. So I've left the rest of it in a bundle, all in one length, because we're going to need it for other blocks that we make. Oh, hello, Penny. No, you haven't missed anything, Lindsay. Oops. What am I doing down here? So let's have a look. Christine thinks it depends on what sort of quilt you want. Trisha said to use 5 or 6 fat quarters. Oh, that's right. Medium, dark, light, or go scrappy. Thank you, Christine. That is absolutely right. So I'm actually using, although my fabric's a little bit longer, I'm using one of the 5-inch by 8-inch, one of my mini quilt ruler sets. So I want this, my squares to be 3.5 inches square. So the first thing we need to do is cut a strip that's 3.5 inches, and then we'll turn it and we will cut it into 3.5 inch squares. So I'm just looking for my half. That's it. So I'm going to take this, because the ruler is not, that doesn't look very straight that I've cut there. Right, let's just do this again. I'm just going to cut this again because it doesn't look perfectly straight. So let me just trim that off again just a little bit, and that looks better. So I'm coming in with my smaller ruler because it's easy to handle, and I'm looking for the half after the 3 to give me my 3.5 inch strip, which I'm then going to cut down. So again, it's got little rubber suckers on here so that it's not going to move. So I'm pushing that, but it's not moving. So what I'm going to do is put my ruler on the fabric and cut. I'm going to leave the blade there, so like that, but I'm going to move the ruler very gently because it's got those suckers on. I'm going to move it up, making sure my 1/2 inch measurement there is still lined up with that edge of the fabric, and then continue cutting. So I've cut there, and I'm going to want 4 of these, so I'm going to make another cut, which is 3.5 inches wide. So again, I'm just going to line that up like so. I can see those white marks that are halfway between the 3. Let me just see if we can come in a little bit closer. There we are. So I've got 1, 2, 3.5. And you'll also notice I'm not using the measurements on my cutting mat. I'm using the edge of the fabric which I've cut, which I know is perfect. When you use a patchwork ruler and a rotary cutter, you know you're going to get perfectly straight lines. Hopefully, I'm sure you are. So I don't line it up with any of these markings on the mat because they can vary over time. If you cut in the same marking many times, it will eventually thicken, and therefore you're not getting an accurate measurement. So by lining up the measurements on your ruler with the edge of your cut fabric, or the cut edge of your fabric, you know it's going to be perfect. So again, I'm just going to open the blade and then just scoot that along, make sure my 3.5 is still measuring perfectly, and we'll set that to the side. So now I have 2 pieces which I'm going to now pop on top of each other, and I can tell that these edges here are not, these edges aren't absolutely straight. So what I'm going to do now, because I need that to be perfect, I'm going to put my ruler as close to that edge as I can, so I'm not wasting anything, and I'm lining up one of these horizontal lines with that cut edge, because I know that's perfect. I know that is, but it's these 2 short ends which aren't. So I've lined that up with that edge, put my hand down on there, and just trim that away. Now, before I cover the blade, it's a good idea to push that strip away, because it saves you covering the blade. You take it off and it's not quite cut, so you uncover the blade, you cut again. if you try to push it away like that before you cover your blade, it means that you won't have to, it just saves a bit of time. So there's that little bit cut off. Now, as a right-handed person, we are going to carefully turn that around, because now I'm going to line that short edge that I've just cut with the 3.5 inch on my ruler. So I like, rather than put the edge of the ruler up to there, so you see I've got it there, sometimes we don't get that exactly in line. What I prefer to do is take it up one more step. So I'm taking it up to basically the inch line. So my ruler is overhanging my fabric, and I can then line up the line with the edge of the fabric and the 3.5 inch mark with that edge as well. There we are, perfect. And then you know that is a perfect 3.5 inch square. So I'm going to do the same thing again, put my hand far away and cut, cover my blade. I felt that I'd cut anyway. And then 3.5 again. So pop your ruler extending past the long edge, and then onto a line so you know that's perfectly straight. And then the 3.5, oops, just move that slightly over, there we go, to give us a 3.5 inch perfect square. So there we have our 4 squares, 1, 2, 3, 4. So they are our outer corners. We will also want one of the darker colour as well. So I'm going to put those over there, and we'll bring in our secondary colour. Where have I put that now? That one's fell on the floor. Here we are. So here is my other one. So what I'm going to do, we do exactly the same as we did before. I'm going to, these are the selvage ends, and I am going to, just come in a bit too far now, am I? There we go. So with these selvage ends, gosh, what a mess on the floor you can see there. Whoops, there we are. I'm going to take my longer ruler and just line that up. I can see the selvage and I can see that yellow line, so I'm just going to trim that away. It feels as though one of my feet is not fully open over here. Oh yeah, no it's not. Oh, that's better. Okay, so I've got a nice straight edge along there again, and I'm just going to take the bottom layer, so I'm only cutting through one layer. So again, we have our fabric, and I want one 3.5 inch square. So in actual fact, because I want, let me have a look. So I know that I'm going to want, rather than wasting fabric, I know I want a square as well, which is going to be the next ones, which are 3 7/8 inches. So rather than cut a strip that's 3 inches and then not use the other pieces, I'm going to cut mine 4 inches, because I know then I will be able to get one of my other squares, my 3 7/8 out of that, and I'm only wasting 1/8 of an inch. So this time I'm just putting my ruler on the 4 inch mark. I know that's my straight edge because I've just cut it, and so I'm going to, and then just shift very carefully. Oh, it's decided to stick a bit. So if you do want to slide it, I would suggest my rubber stickers here, turning your fabric over. Now, I've lost that now, but there we go. So I'm just lining that fabric up carefully. I know it's going to be all right. So I'm doing it at 4 inches. So I'm just going to realign that, put my blade back down here, so it's butted up against my ruler so that I can slide it against the ruler. And I want to get that exactly 4 inches. Okay, so I am going to want 2 of those, and I'm not going to get it out of 2, so out of 1. So again, I'm just going to slide that over, and I'm going to do another 4 inch strip here, and we will go open the blade, move that up, make sure my 4 inch is still lined up there, and we have that 4 inch one done. So the first thing I want to do, I'm taking this one strip, and this time I want a 3.5 inch square here. So let's turn it that way. I have a nice straight edge there where I trimmed off the selvage. So I'm looking at, and because I'm only doing 3.5, I'm just going to put it around the right way. So I'm just looking at my 3.5 inch line. It is 4 inches here, which I don't want that, but I'm lining up the 3.5 because we're looking for a 3.5 inch square. So that has cut that one. And then I'm going to turn it once more again, just 90 degrees, line up the 3.5, just like we did before, so that the top edge, the row, the marking on the ruler is lined up with that top edge, and the 3.5 going down this side. And then I'm going to trim that little bit off, push that away, and we have our centre 3.5 inch square. Now the other thing we want, and again I'm going to layer this one on top of the other. This one is my straight edge where I trimmed, so I'm going to line that up perfectly there. And what I want now is I want two, so that's all beautifully aligned. I want two 3 7/8. Now 7/8 is halfway between, let's come in a little bit closer there. Let's just have a look, see if you can see. 3 7/8 is, now let's have a look on a dark area here. So here is our 4. That's not very good, is it there? I'm going into a dark bit, hopefully. So there is our 4, and there is our 3 3/4. It's the one in between. So we know what 3 3/4 is, and we know with the 4 there. The 7/8, 3 7/8 is the little mark in between 3 3/4 and 4. So it's a bit of a fiddly one to do, but it makes the measurements, it makes the blocks fit perfectly, because this is going to make our half square triangles, and we need two of these squares and 2 squares of this colour, which are going to make 4 in total of our half square triangle blocks. So I'm going to line up again. I'm using the 1 inch line down so that I can line that edge, and that's on the 1/4, so we want to be on the there's little markings all the way down so that we get a perfect cut. And again, I'm just going to put my hand on there, and we have our 2. Let's just check that this way. That looks a little bit, let's just see, 3 7/8. Oh no, that's perfect. Must be my eyesight. That is, there we are. Yes, that's perfect. I've got 2 blocks there of 3 7/8, and I want 2. So let's put that one out of the way. I want to have 2 more from my green, so my background, if you like, of 3 7/8. Now, on this occasion, I know that cut. I know this cut here. Let's go back. There we are. I know this cut here is perfectly straight. So again, I am looking at 3 7/8, and I've got that little mark all the way down. It's a little bit difficult for you to see these markings, but I'm going to cut that just as I did the other one, and then hopefully this will just slide up there, and I'm looking at the little mark. So I'm still lining up down here and make sure that is, and that is my 3 7/8 inch strip. I think this time I'm going to trim this edge here because I don't think it is perfectly straight. So I'm just lining up a horizontal with the edge that I do know is perfect, and I have trimmed that tiny little bit off there. So now when I swivel it around, we can look at that 3 7/8 again and line that horizontal, And look at those markings down this side here. Make sure they are perfect. So there is one 3 7/8 inch square, and here is the other 3 7/8. So you can see, I think, this little mark, there is my 3 3/4, there is my 4. So again, just hold that nice and firmly. I shifted it a little bit, but you perhaps notice I'm standing up because I like to stand while I am cutting. Obviously, if you can't, just press a little bit more firmly so that you get a good cut. So there are my 4 squares which are going to make my half square triangles. So what we're going to do next, and this is where we don't need to cut them in half, which you probably think I need to cut that in half diagonally, and this one, and then stitch them together. But what we're going to do instead, we're going to put the fabrics right sides together, like so, and they should match up perfectly. And this one too. Gosh, my cutting's a little bit out tonight. Let's just have a look. Here's my ruler. Let me see what I haven't. 3 7/8, and my, oh, yes, that is just slightly. Let's just have a look. 3 7/8. That's 3 7/8. That isn't. It's funny how. There we go. Perhaps I didn't trim that one. There's a tiny little bit. So on this blue, so 3 7/8. It's funny. The more patchwork you do, the more easily. There's a smidgen that I didn't cut off there. That's why. That is why it didn't look square to me. So 3 7/8, and I'm matching up those lines. No, that one is right there. Just turn it the other way. It's this edge here. So lining those up, and there is the tiniest little bit out. So the thing is, it will make for, let's just, there we go. It will make for everything working together perfectly, the more accurate you can be. So there we are. There's that little smidgen there, and that will make a difference. Okay, let's start again. So right sides together for both of these, and that is much better. Exactly what I wanted it to look like, that you can't see one fabric under the other. Okay, perfect, just what I wanted. So what we're going to do now is we are going to draw a line, a diagonal line. On this occasion, it doesn't matter at all as to which direction you draw your lines. It doesn't matter. So I like to go backwards and forwards. You see how the fabric can move a little bit if you don't. So I've drawn myself a line on that one, and we will draw a diagonal line from one corner to the other. So I could have drawn it that way, but it won't matter at all. There are occasions when it does, when it has to be in a certain direction. So I've drawn that line, and that is going to form my half square triangles. Now, what I would suggest is that you, let's just put that thread under there, that you pop a pin out of the way just to hold those together. So we'll just put one pin in there and one pin in there. You don't want the fabrics to move, and just by putting that pin in, it will actually help. It will help to hold those pieces together and stop the fabric moving, because we want them to be, there we are, practically can't see what's underneath. Now what we're going to do now is we are going to stitch 1/4 inch to the side of this line and 1/4 inch to the other side. So you can either put your patchwork foot on, or like I do, or miss that there, and move my needle to 5.5 and that will give me a 1/4 inch seam. You're used to standing up. Jane had a hearing last week and ended up with new aids as mine won't properly. Okay. Snap, me too. I missed these bits. Oh, you've got a hearing test. Oh, perhaps you didn't hear what I said. Christine has all sorts of gadgets to help me. None of these work. Sorry, allowed me husband to do the cutting. Never been able to cut sitting down. No, I haven't. You do get, I think it's because you've got your weight over the ruler and therefore you can hold it steadily. When you're holding it sitting down, your hand can slip. I do, on the TV, obviously I have to sit down doing it, but I quite often say, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stand up, because you do get a better cut if you're standing. Yes, get your hubby au fait with it. Can you imagine Martin? And Barbara's found a big improvement since you only measure with the ruler, not the cutting mat. Fabulous, Barbara. I could have just a blank cutting mat. It wouldn't faze me in the slightest because I don't use the lines on the mat at all. So here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm lining, because I've moved my needle position to 5.5. There we go. I am going to, there we go. I'm going to stitch to the side. So it's almost, I'm driving on the wrong side of the road, because for a right-hander, I'm starting on the left. And I think for a left-hander, you might feel better starting on the opposite side. So I have also, I'm going to move the length of my stitch to a small 1.8 I'm using, because I find that works better for the patchwork. It makes it look as if it's continuous fabric. So let's start stitching here. So go slowly if you would like to go slowly, but make sure the side of the foot follows that line the whole way down. It's very easy to get down here and veer off, to either go inwards or outwards, and then your 1/4 inch seam is not the whole way down. So what I tend to do, so rather than, I could chain piece and put the next one under, but it gets in the way a little bit. So what I do here now, I've got the needle down, but I'm going to lift the presser foot, swivel it around, give it a little pull, so there's a little bit of thread there, and then you can pop the foot straight back down on the other side. And because you've pulled that little bit of thread, it allows you then to stitch, oops, what it should do, it allows you to stitch down the other side. Perhaps I was being mean and not pulling a very long amount of thread. Okay, so let's just have a look to see what it crunched a little bit there, but oh no, we're all right. It just stitched that. So I've got 2 rows of stitching, 1 on each side of that drawn line. And I'm going to do the exact same again with the other 2 squares that we have placed together. So we'll whiz down here and all the way down, and then we're going to lift the presser foot, pull that thread, it allows it to release, and then just push that out of the way, and then drop that thread down, and then we can start stitching down the other side. And we have our two squares now. So there's the other one with stitching down each side. Now I'm using Orifil thread, as I have been now for a couple of weeks, and it does sink into the fabric. Really, really lovely. Yours will be on its way to you very, very soon. Scissors. Right, let's just get my scissors. So we can take this to the cutting mat if you want to cut along here, but why not? We're only doing 2. Why not just use your scissors and cut along that line? It doesn't matter if we go off a little bit. Let me show you. So here I've cut a little bit to the side, but as long as you don't go very close to the stitching, it really doesn't matter. because we've got our stitching in place. We're not having to line anything up, but we've got that drawn line which we're now cutting along. Okay, next thing we need to do is to do a little bit of pressing. So let's get the mat on, the iron on, and we're going to press our seams to the dark side. And when I say the dark side, it means that the two seams together will go under the darker fabric. And the easy way to get that to happen without having to think about it is have your dark fabric on the top. So let's just see here. So I've got my iron ready. So what we're going to do is, first of all, this is the seam here. We're going to set the seam. Setting the seam helps the stitches sink into that seam and not show. And then I'm just going to push open at the middle, and then with my fingers and just press along the seam. I'm using a wool pressing mat because they just make a superb finish, and that gives me that perfect seam. And again, we'll set that seam by pressing along it, push it open, and then I'm just pressing it with my fingers, and then you can even come back on there, and that's number 2. And then press that seam, set the seam into the middle, and I'm sort of pushing, as I say, I'm pushing my fingers just to make sure that's totally opened. And then if you go along the seam, it's not actually stretching the fibres or the fabric to distort it. So set that seam into the middle and then just go along there. You can move the fabric round if you want to, and just pull that open, and now we have got 4 identical squares. I would probably say now to trim off your dog ears, because they do just get in the way, like so, and just trim them off level with the sides there, and clip there and there. So try not to trim any of the square itself off, but just trim it level with the fabric that it's extending from underneath. Okay, so we are getting there. I'm hoping it's cutting still after all these years. You don't have a straight eye. Just look at your ruler. Just look at your ruler and look at those lines on the ruler. So we have our 4 half square triangles. I'm now making sure I haven't lost my, oh no, there it is. So now I have got my 4 3.5 inch squares. Now what should happen, and let's have a test. This half square triangle should be exactly the same as our 3.5 inch square. So let's put one on top of the other, and it should, so look at that. So you can't see any, and let's have a look there. Oh, it's the tiniest bit. Now that would be, there we go. I'll say if I stretch that out, I've got the most minimal bit there, but you can hardly notice that. So, as I say, excuse me, all of these should be exactly the same size. You can measure them, and as long as they measure 3.5 inches square, if they're a bit too big, you can always trim them down to a 3.5 inch square. So let's just separate these out. Now we need to put them in the order that they're going to appear as a block. So we're going to have one in the corner, one in the corner, 1 and 1. So we're going to have 4 like that. We're going to have that dark blue square in the center, like so. And then we're going to have these half square triangles going around. So we're looking at that one. If we put them the same direction, so that's exactly the same as that, then we want to swivel it round one, like so. In actual fact, what I would say, the easiest way to note, if you have your dark edge meeting the square in the middle. So there is my dark edge, and it goes there. There is my dark edge. If I did it there, you can see that's wrong. So the dark edge, there's two dark edges, so just that, and you want that to swim around like a star. As I say, if you, two dark edges, if I put that one there, you could see that looks wrong. But we could make another block. Can you see by swiveling around, we've got a different block. But what we want it to be is a star. So we will put them going the right way round. Now, this is one of the occasions when we actually, it matters which way round these half square triangles are. Otherwise, it might make something like I've just shown you, the different block. So I'm going to do this way of joining them together, which makes it, cuts out the risk of putting them together in the wrong orientation. So, and I've shown you this before. Some of you may have seen it, some of you may not, but it really does work, and you don't have to concentrate too much. So what we're going to do first of all, always lay out the blocks in the where in the placement that they should be, and then we're going to work with this row and this row. So we're going to flip right sides together, so that's going to go there, this one is going to go there, and this one is going to go there. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch down this edge, and then down this edge, and down this edge. And when we are going to chain piece, so we're not going to cut our thread in between stitching all of these, I'm going to set these to the side, okay, because they're going to come, we're going to add those next. So if I move those over and just over here, so just the same and just the same, that's set like so, because I'm going to pick them up one at a time. So I'm going to stitch down here, so pin if you would like to, but make sure those edges are beautifully aligned. And then again with a 1/4 inch seam, let's just go there, we are going to stitch, let's put our needle down, we're going to stitch down here and right to the end, and don't taper inwards. So there's one. Then I'm going to take the next one here, and we're going down this edge. So again, just make sure that is beautifully aligned, and that is just a tiny bit down. So we will push this one under next, like so, down to the end, and then this one we are going down here. So again, just make sure that is perfectly matched there. Pop a pin here if you want to, but it's quite a short seam and you should be okay with that. I'm watching the edge of my foot here, just making sure that all lines up perfectly. So we're now going to cut that. So they're all, as you can see, joined together. Now I'm just going to bring these ones from here back over so that they're still in the right place. I'm not turning them at all, but they're still in the right place. And then I'm going to open these out, and then you'll be able to see that, just check that the star points are all going in the right direction as before. So that still looks fine to me. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to put these onto the piece that we've already joined. So I'm going to lift that one onto here, and I'll leave that one. This one I'm going to pin, because when we move it, so right sides together, align that edge like so, and I'm just going to put a pin, whoops, that's not a good one, I'm just going to put a pin in the center there just to hold that together, and this one here, right sides together, and align that edge there. And we'll take another pin and just, as I say, as I move this down, these will fall off. So I'm working with this top one first of all. Those edges are aligned, and we're going to stitch our 1/4 inch seam again. And just like before, come to the end, and I'm not going to, I'm just going to lift my presser foot, whoops, and pop it onto the fabric is better to do, and stitch straight down here. Take that pin out as we get to it, and straight to the end. We're not cutting our threads, just lift that up and carry on down onto the next block and straight down to the end there. And now we cut when we get to the end. So now when we take that off and open these blocks up, we have got them all going in the right direction. But they're still not, they're all joined, and we haven't got them wrong. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to do a little bit of pressing. So I can pick it up, throw it around, it's not going anywhere. So I can put them wrong side up and just pull them out a little bit, because what we're going to do now is we are going to push the seam, we're going to press the seams together but in opposite directions. So with this, it doesn't really matter which way round, whether it's the top or the bottom first, but the we can press them all in. So this one I'm going to press that way, this one I'm going to press this way, and that one I'm going to press that way. So I like to just make it taut, grab one end, the opposite end to the one you're pressing, and give that a press, and give that a press on the other side. And then, because that is my preferred direction of pressing, I'm going to do this one at the top here as well. So I'm going to press that one over and just go gently across there, and I'm pulling this taut so that I'm getting that whole seam. We'll do a press on the right side in a minute, but so I've got the top and the bottom going that way. This one I want to come this way. So the easiest thing for me is actually to turn it around, because then I am still pressing in my preferred direction. I like to press that way, and you will have a preferred one for yourself as well. So we're just going to press that, but it is in fact in the opposite direction to the ones at the other side, as you can see. So these go that way, those go that way, and those go that way. Now it means we can nest these seams beautifully. So we can now turn it back to the right side. We'll take it off of the mat because we don't need that anymore. And you see it's still all together. I could have pressed that again, but that's pressed pretty well. I mean, what I would normally do is just give that another press, but I can see that is done okay. So now I'm going to take my top onto my bottom, and when I lift it up, obviously my ones are still attached here, so it doesn't matter. But what we will find is these seams going in opposite directions there, they will nest, and you can just feel that. I can feel that is nested in there, that is going together, but I still like to put a pin. So we'll pop a pin there. You can put a pin here as well, so I can feel that is nesting beautifully. Let's just open that out. Can you see those seams? One goes one way and one goes the other. So we'll just feel that. Make sure these edges are aligned beautifully as well. And we'll just put a pin in there. And so this edge now is perfect to just stitch the whole way along. So just making sure that that is perfectly aligned, and then we will stitch across. And then just as I get, it's only just before I get to the pin, I take it out, because if you take it out too quickly, it can move, and then you haven't actually got your nesting that you wanted. So just pull that out. See how close I was to it? So we have stitched right across there. Let's just see if we have our beautifully joined seam, and I think so. So those have given me perfect points here and here. So then the next one is to flip this. This is loose. We'll flip that one up to there. And again, we'll look at that nesting. So we will just push that towards there, and that fits beautifully there. So I'm pushing it and feeling it. Now, one thing if I'd used a contrast, where the seams intersect across there, we can actually look at this one. It's the way this seam is pressed. I can see where they intersect, and that's the point I want to stitch. Hopefully that is 1/4 inch from there to the edge anyway, so we shouldn't have too much trouble there. And then again here, let's just push those two bits together. Just make sure. There we go. So I'm looking under there, pushing that together. Just feels a little bit thicker there. Oh, it's because of my yeah, that's where the dog ears were, or the bunny ears. So I'm just putting a pin there, and that all fits beautifully. And as I say, just make sure that lines up along that edge as well. And we will pop that under the machine and stitch our 1/4 inch seam again. So if you can see that intersection at 1/4 inch, and stitch through that point, or just to the right. What you don't want to do is stitch too far over, because that's where it cuts your points off, and that fits there beautifully as well. So I'm coming up to that pin just before I get there, and then hopefully that will give me the most perfect point. So let's have a look. Oh, and it does. That is exactly, it's hard to see if I move that right in, but those are the points we wanted, and that's just because of those little tips I gave you along the way, but where those come together. So I'm just going to, the very last thing I'm going to do is to give those seams that we've just sewn a press. And what I would do, I would look at it. Now, to me, this seam wants to go that way, and that seam wants to go that way. So that is what I'm going to do. So just be careful with these other seams. You don't want to press them away. So just pull down on the outer piece so that we open up that seam properly. We can press onto the seams there. So this is coming that way, and then this is going in the opposite one. Actually, again, I prefer to press towards me. So if I turn it round, I can do that. So just press those over. And I mean, possibly you prefer to open your seams. That's entirely up to you. But I do believe you get better intersections when the seams are nested as opposed to opened. So now I just give it a press on the top, along there. Don't want to stretch it, but what you'll notice, and that's good, it's better than my sample one. So I'm just pressing that outwards. What you'll notice here, and it's exactly as it should be, we are going to have, I'm just going to bring that in a little bit so that you can see perfectly here. Whoops, no, here. So here we have a distance of 1/4 inch. Here there is 1/4 inch. That's our seam allowance when we join it together. And oh, I'm always doing it the wrong way. Here we have 1/4 inch, and whoops, wrong way. Where am I? Here we have 1/4 inch. Now that's what we want. Where these points are, we want there to be, just go back out, that's it. Here and here and here and here, we want there to be 1/4 inch of that background, because that's when we join together. Just take that one down. So when we join this one together, I'm not going to join it with this one, but we need that 1/4 inch seam, otherwise we're going to chop those points off. But that is our first block all done, and you can see I've used different colour fabrics, but they work, don't they? They show that. Oh, the comments are here. Don't know how long ago those comments were there, but they have decided to appear. I've been looking at the phone on and off. Oh, thank you, Anne. So it works, doesn't it? looks a bit with the light in the background. Let's just put that one. If I put one against the other, that's it. So there we are. So that looks better like so. But yeah, so there we are. So these are the songbook. I just love colour, so I don't mind. Probably my favourite colour is cerise, purple, mustard, jade, all of those vibrant colours. But I thought I would go for something more muted but vibrant. You've got your navy really bringing those colours out. And yeah, the fabrics are just lovely. You love that wonky, that wonky star. It is like a wonky star, isn't it? Yeah. I know, Janet. That's exactly what I thought. The friendship star. That's what we are all. Oh, thank you, Mary. That is what we are all about. Friendship. You know that it stems from me and yourselves, and it all comes together here. So I thought, what a fitting block to start this particular one off with. So I'm sorry I haven't read all the comments, but I will, as I sit down for the evening, go through the rest of them. So this is your first block. Enjoy it when you give it a go. I am going to, the video that I've just done will definitely go into, definitely, I'm reading what you'd put, so definitely. It will go into the group and be there ad infinitum. And so you will be able to look back at it again and again, or save it to your own folders as well. I make it look so simple. Oh, well, you give it a go. Just think about all the little things I said along the way. And it's only because when I learned all those years ago, I took those tips on board, and I do it every time. That's why I don't cut my fingers on the rotary cutter, because I close my blade. Sounds silly, cover your blade, close the blade, but boy, put your fingers back a little bit. How you cut a straight edge if there's no selvage on the fabric. I tell you what, pop that on, because at the minute, oh yes, we're coming up to about finish time, and I'll go through that in detail. It's just sort of time-wise, so I will go through it next time. In fact, I will go through it next time. I'll use a bit of fabric where I fold it and cut through, say, 2 layers. And oh, I'm glad I've lifted your spirits, Ellen. This is for you. This is the friendship star for you. So yes, we'll go through that, how you cut when you haven't got a straight edge. What you could do, just very quickly, Technique Tuesday topic. That's what we'll do. Very quickly though, if you grab hold of your fabric, let me have I've got a bit here, so we don't know which edge is which. Go like this, right? So top to bottom, I'm pulling it, side to side, and diagonal. Oh, you see that stretch, and the sound is a dull thud. Can you hear that sound? So straight grain, lengthwise, bass, a cross grain, soprano, and bias, no, just a thud. So give it a little bit of stretch, and then you'll work out roughly where the straight one goes across the other. The weft goes left to right, and the warp goes top to bottom. How about that? Okay, so I hear my dinner getting ready. You can hear that sound, good. It is just a little way to test it out, and I'll show you when you fold fabric to make sure it's folded correctly, even though you don't know which way it is. So I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've picked up a few little tips along the way, and I hope you enjoy making your block. By all means, post any questions in the group. I would probably say, you can pop your blocks if you would like to. Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Tony. Pop your blocks in the Sew Trisha Sews group if you would like to. I'd love to see what colourways you're coming up with. So, thank you for joining me tonight. I shall be here on Thursday, when I say here, on the So Totally Trisha page. It will be a mug hug for a takeaway coffee container. I have made one and it's worked, so I think I shall quite enjoy showing you that. And then on Friday, I know, it's another mug rug, but in patchwork and a different style. Very straightforward yet again, but something little, quick and little, for those of you who are trying to get back into sewing but you lost that mojo. So it's something nice and quick, but it does look good once it's made. So have a lovely evening, and I will see you on Thursday. So bye for now.